The Galactic SOS day had started like any other on Earth. Humans were busy with their daily lives, working, studying, going about their routines. But all of that changed in an instant. A galactic SOS echoed through the universe, reaching Earth in a way no one could have predicted. The message was not just a plea for help, it was a call for survival. A warning that something was coming that could destroy everything. The transmission was cryptic at first, just a string of codes and signals. Then it became clear: aliens, an advanced and ancient race far beyond humanity's understanding, were in grave danger. Their enemies were closing in on them, and the invaders' power was overwhelming. The message was direct and to the point. We need your help. We are under attack. Come to our aid, or the galaxy will fall. At first, it was hard to believe. Earth had been through its fair share of conflict and chaos, but aliens? Real, actual aliens? For many, this message sounded like a fantasy, a plotline from a sci-fi novel. But when the message repeated and when alien ships appeared on Earth's radar, there was no denying the truth. Humanity had just been thrust into an intergalactic war. In a high-security meeting room, Earth's leaders, military officials, and scientists gathered to analyze the alien transmission. The United Nations had been called into action, but no one had answers. The world's leaders were at a loss. What did this mean for Earth? Could they trust these alien beings? Why were they asking for humanity's help? And what were they going to ask of them? The first few hours were filled with debate and speculation. Some suggested the message could be a hoax, others were skeptical, wondering if the aliens were trying to manipulate Earth for some hidden purpose. After all, humans had always been cautious of alien species. The idea of trusting them, especially in a moment of crisis, was not an easy thing to accept. But then, the first alien ship arrived and everything changed. It was like nothing anyone on Earth had ever seen. The ship's design was sleek and otherworldly, shimmering with a faint light that seemed to distort the very air around it. It was a silent, majestic arrival. It wasn't an invasion, it was a request. The aliens were not demanding anything, they were asking for help, but in a way that made the entire world pause. Humanity was now faced with a decision. Do they respond? Do they help these strange beings in their moment of need? Or do they turn away and risk an alien threat coming to Earth later? After all, humanity had its own problems to solve. Could they afford to get involved in something bigger than themselves? In the war room, Commander Callan stared at the glowing screens in front of him. He had been briefed on the alien ships, their capabilities, and the danger the galaxy faced. His mind raced as he processed the information. Earth's military might had always been focused on defending Earth from external threats. But this was something entirely different. The aliens were not enemies, they were asking for help. Their situation seemed dire, and the idea of facing the unknown was terrifying. Arya, what do you think? Callan asked, turning to his top strategist. She had been working tirelessly, analyzing the data that came from the alien ship and the OS message. Arya looked up, her face serious. The message is genuine, Commander. These aliens are not trying to deceive us, they are in trouble, and they are asking for our assistance. But why us? Callan asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. Why humanity? Why would they turn to us of all species? Arya sighed and ran a hand through her hair. I don't know, it doesn't make sense. They're an advanced race, one that survived for millennia, but they're asking for help from a species like us? We barely survived our own battles, and now we're supposed to be their saviors? The meeting continued, and the more they discussed the situation, the more it became apparent that humanity had no choice but to respond. The Galactic SOS wasn't just a plea, it was a warning. The enemy that the aliens were facing was more powerful than anything Earth had ever encountered. We don't just have to help them, Callan said, his voice now steely. We have to help ourselves. The enemy they face could come for us next. If we don't act now, we may never get another chance. Back on the alien ship, Tariq, the leader of the alien species, paced restlessly. He had watched humanity's progress with keen interest. They were a species on the brink of greatness, yet still fragile, just like his people had once been. Now, as they awaited a response, Tariq understood just how much was at stake. We need their help, he said, his voice heavy with the weight of their situation. If they fail us, all will be lost. Earth must answer. On Earth, the decision was made. Humanity had no choice. They would answer the SOS. They would send their best fleet, a special task force, to join forces with the aliens. The fight for survival wasn't just about Earth anymore, it was about the galaxy. The human fleet would answer the call for help, but they were entering uncharted territory, unsure of what they would face. What if the aliens had their own hidden agenda? What if this was a trap? As humanity's Deathworlder fleet prepared for its mission, Callan stood at the helm of the flagship, staring out at the stars. We don't know what we're walking into, he thought. But if we don't take this step, we may never get the chance to fight. The call for help had been answered. But the journey ahead was filled with uncertainty. Humanity would be joining the fight of its life, standing alongside an alien race on the verge of destruction. And as the Deathworlder fleet powered up for their journey into the unknown, a new chapter for Earth was about to begin. The decision to respawn stars outside the command ship gleamed with an unnatural intensity, like the universe itself was watching, holding its breath. Humanity stood at the crossroads of history. For the first time, they were no longer just defenders of their world. They were being called upon by a species older and more powerful than any they had encountered before. The alien SOS had pierced through Earth's defenses, sending a message that could change the course of their future. Commander Callan paced back and forth in the war room, the weight of their decision pressing down on him. "We're not ready," he muttered under his breath, though he knew the truth no one ever was. They had fought wars, survived plagues, but now they were facing something that didn't just threaten Earth. This was a battle for the very future of the galaxy. "Sir, the fleet is prepared," Arya said, breaking through his thoughts. Her voice was calm but full of the same tension Callan felt. She had been his right hand in every major operation, and now she too was uncertain. The humans were about to embark on a journey into unknown space, responding to a call that could mean their end. "How do we even begin to trust them?" Callan asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. The Deathworlders, as the aliens called themselves, had lived through countless wars, and yet they were now asking for humanity's help. What could make them so vulnerable? Arya crossed the room, staring at the galactic map displayed on the wall. It was a visual representation of the alien threat, the force they were all now united against. "They're not just asking for our help, Callan, they're desperate, but the question is, what will they do when they have us in their grasp? If we come, we might not just be saving them, we might be signing up for a future we don't control." The tension in the room was palpable. The alien ships that had arrived in Earth's orbit were intimidating, but they weren't the threat. It was the mysterious enemy, the one that had put the Deathworlders on the brink of destruction, that lingered in the back of everyone's minds. Meanwhile, on the alien flagship, Tariq, the Deathworlder leader, stared out of the observation window, watching the humans prepare. His species had survived countless enemies, but this was different. The humans were wild, unpredictable, and dangerous in their own right. He couldn't fully trust them, but they were his only hope. The Galactic SOS had been a last-ditch effort, a call that could either save or doom them all. "We have no other choice," Tariq said, turning to his council. "The enemy that threatens us is unlike anything we've faced before. Our only chance is to join forces with the humans. We can teach them our ways of war, but we must remain cautious. Humanity's unpredictability is both a strength and a weakness." Jara, his second-in-command, nodded, her gaze hard. "We've survived wars where no one believed we could, but I don't trust the humans. They're an unknown. If they're willing to fight with us, it will only be because they have something to gain." Tariq's eyes narrowed. "We must convince them that our survival is tied to theirs. If they win, we win, but if they fail, it will be the end of everything." Back on Earth, as the human fleet prepared for their departure, Commander Callan stood before his crew. The decision had been made. They were answering the Galactic SOS, but now it was time to put that decision into action. Earth's Deathworlder fleet was about to engage in a galaxy-spanning war, one that they didn't fully understand. "This isn't just another mission," Callan began, his voice steady. "We're entering a war we didn't start, and we have no idea who our enemies really are. We've been given the chance to fight alongside the Deathworlders, but remember, we don't know what we're getting into. Trust no one completely, especially when it comes to those who are desperate for help. We help them, but we keep our eyes open." His words hung in the air, and the crew exchanged looks of resolve. They were ready, but deep down, they knew that this war would test them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The fleet launched into space, the Deathworlder ships flanking Earth's own vessels, their design sleek and intimidating. As they traveled further from Earth, the vastness of space seemed to close in on them. Stars twinkled in the distance, their light giving a sense of hope, but beneath that, there was an undeniable tension. The humans and aliens were headed toward unknown territory, where danger could be waiting around every corner. "We are heading into enemy territory," Arya remarked, looking at the star map on the console. The alien ships were faster and more agile, but humanity had their own strengths: determination, adaptability, and the element of surprise. "We may have the upper hand with the Deathworlder fleet, but the real challenge lies in what we don't know. We're heading into a galaxy at war, and we've never been part of this kind of conflict before." As the two fleets ventured deeper into space, the tension grew. The enemy, whoever they were, hadn't shown themselves yet, but Callan could feel it in his gut, the calm before the storm. It wouldn't be long before the humans and Deathworlders would be thrown into the fire, forced to fight for their survival. But what was the real enemy? Was it the alien forces they were about to face, or was it something more dangerous lurking in the shadows, something older, something more devastating than anyone could imagine? The journey was just beginning and humanity's role in it had only just begun to take shape. Suspense, what happens when the enemy finally reveals itself? And can humanity survive a fight that goes beyond their understanding? Asterisk into the unknown ships drifted silently through the vastness of space. Their sleek forms cutting through the starry void, humanity and the Deathworlders were no longer strangers, but allies united by a common goal to face an enemy neither side fully understood. The alien fleet, with its terrifying size and power, was a distant memory for now. But the true enemy that threatened the galaxy still remained unseen waiting. The humans aboard the flagship were tense. They had faced many battles, but this war was unlike any other. The unknown stretched before them like an endless chasm. Commander Callan stood at the helm, staring out at the dark expanse, his face serious. They were no longer fighting to survive, they were fighting for the galaxy's future. As the ships moved further into uncharted space, they encountered strange phenomena. There were pockets of dark energy that distorted space itself, creating rifts in the fabric of reality. The Deathworlders navigated through these spaces with skill, but for humanity, every moment felt like a leap of faith. Every anomaly they passed was a reminder of the danger they were heading toward. What is all this? Arya asked, her voice filled with wonder and fear. She had never seen space like this. Its beauty was overshadowed by the darkness that seemed to have a mind of its own. These are the remnants of ancient wars, said Tariq, who had been silent for most of the journey. The leader of the Deathworlders stood next to them, his eyes scanning the darkness ahead. The enemy we face is not new. It has been biding its time, gathering power from these very rifts. The catalyst we warned you about is alive, and it has been growing stronger with every war it consumes. Callan turned to him. So, these anomalies are the catalyst's doing, and we're headed right for it. Tariq nodded grimly. We've traced its energy signature. We're not just fighting a race of aliens, we're fighting an ancient force that exists outside of time and space. The catalyst feeds on conflict, and now it is stirring. We're its next meal. As they continued deeper into space, a strange chill filled the ships. The Deathworlders' fleet was eerily quiet, its warriors preparing for the coming battle. Humans, on the other hand, felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. This was no longer a simple battle for Earth's survival. They were about to face something far older, far more dangerous, and humanity was uncertain if they were ready for it. The Deathworlders had warned them about the catalyst, but humanity had never faced such a force. The dark energy that had begun to swirl around them was like a warning, a sign that they were getting closer to the source of this terrible power. Earth's fleet was equipped with advanced weapons, but nothing prepared them for what lay ahead. Arya felt the unease growing within her. This doesn't feel right, she said softly, her eyes scanning the readings. The dark energy was intensifying, and her gut told her they were getting closer to something they didn't fully understand. The Deathworlders had warned them, but even they seemed uncertain about what would happen when they finally confronted the catalyst. Callan turned to her, his face hard with resolve. We have to face it, Arya. There's no turning back now. If we can destroy it, we can end this war. We'll never be able to go back home if we don't stop it. Then the calm was broken. A series of explosions erupted across the ship's hulls, shaking the fleet. The lights flickered, and alarms blared. The Deathworlder ships immediately went on high alert, their weapons primed. The human fleet was caught off guard, scrambling to react. What the hell was that? Callan shouted, rushing to the command station. Arya worked quickly, her fingers flying over the console. I'm not sure, Commander. The enemy has found us. The catalyst has opened a rift and we're being pulled in. Suddenly, the ships were pulled toward the center of the dark energy, the rift pulling at them like a giant cosmic hand. The Deathworlders attempted to fight back, firing weapons into the rift, but nothing seemed to stop its pull. We need to get out of here now, Arya screamed, but Tariq stepped forward, his voice cold. We can't escape, Commander. The rift is alive. It will drag us all in if we don't destroy it from the inside. As the alien fleet closed in on them, Callan made a decision. They had no choice but to face the rift head-on. Prepare to launch the final assault, he commanded. We destroy the rift, or we perish. The human ships made their way into the heart of the rift, weapons at the ready. The Deathworlder fleet followed closely behind as they entered the core of the dark energy. Everything felt frozen, time seemed to stand still. The very fabric of space was warped, and the ships struggled to maintain their integrity as they approached the center of the catalyst. We're in it now, Callan said, his voice heavy with the knowledge of what was at stake. We'll either stop it or the galaxy falls, all of us, together. As the final assault began, the rift surged with energy. The catalyst was awake, and its hunger was insatiable. The very fabric of reality seemed to unravel, and the ships struggled against the pull of the dark forces around them. This was no longer a battle for survival. This was a battle for existence itself. In this chaotic scene, humanity and the Deathworlders would either prevail or be consumed by the very force they had hoped to control. The tipping point tension aboard the Deathworlder fleet was unbearable. After their initial encounter with the Catalyst, the situation had escalated quickly. The dark rift surrounding them continued to grow, and the energy readings were off the charts. The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound that filled the tense silence. The rift wasn't just a cosmic anomaly anymore, it was becoming a sentient force, aware of their presence and actively resisting every attempt to stop it. Inside the command room, Commander Callan stood over a digital map, trying to make sense of the chaos unfolding. His fingers hovered over the controls, but the numbers kept changing, fluctuating wildly. The energy signature was too volatile, and each time they tried to recalibrate, the readings would shift again. "We're running out of options," Callan muttered under his breath. He could feel the weight of the decision bearing down on him. The galaxy's fate hung on a knife's edge, and there was no telling how long the fleet could hold out. "Commander," Arya said, her voice tense, "the Catalyst is not just a source of power, it's feeding off the chaos we're creating. We need to cut off the source, stop feeding it the energy from our battles." Callan nodded grimly. "I know, but how do we stop it without making things worse?" Meanwhile, the Deathworlder fleet was already on high alert, their warriors preparing for an eventual counterattack. Tariq, the Deathworlder leader, was pacing in his war room, his face hard with determination. The alliance between humans and Deathworlders had been forged out of necessity, but now their survival depended on it. "We must act now," Tariq said, his voice as sharp as ever. "The longer we wait, the more the Catalyst grows. We cannot let this entity get stronger. It's feeding on our conflict, but we still have a chance to stop it." Jara, his second-in-command, nodded. "We've pushed it this far, but the Catalyst is not just a force of nature. It's more than we can imagine, and if we can't find a way to neutralize it, we won't just lose the war, we'll lose everything we've fought for." Tariq's eyes flickered with a mix of resolve and fear. "This isn't just about the survival of our species, it's about the survival of life itself. If we don't stop it now, the universe will fall into the hands of chaos." Back on Earth's flagship, Commander Callan was preparing for a final attempt to stabilize the fleet's trajectory. As he stared at the swirling mass of dark energy on the view screen, his thoughts drifted to the price they had paid to get this far. "We've already lost a third of the fleet, Callan," Arya said quietly, her voice strained. "We can't afford to waste any more time. The Deathworlders might be able to hold out a little longer, but we don't have the same resilience. We're human. If we can't stop the Catalyst now, our world will be swallowed whole." Callan clenched his jaw. "We'll figure it out, Arya. We can't just give up. The Deathworlders might be able to fight their way out, but we're fighting for our future. We need to learn how to fight smarter, use the one thing the Catalyst doesn't have, our resourcefulness." Suddenly, the communications officer broke through the tension. "Commander, you need to see this." Callan turned sharply. On the view screen, a new transmission had come through, a message from the Deathworlder fleet, but it wasn't just a call for assistance, it was a warning. The message, sent by Tariq, was chilling. "The Catalyst has shifted, Commander. It's not just absorbing our power, it's now learning from our moves, adapting to our strategies. We must take action immediately, or it will become unstoppable. The universe cannot survive if this continues. We are preparing to send in a final strike, but we will need your fleet's assistance. Time is running out. If we cannot disable it from within, the galaxy will be lost." Callan's mind raced. Time was the enemy now. He looked at Arya. "We have to coordinate with them, hit the core at the same time. The final strike has to be synchronized. It's the only way we can break its hold." As the two fleets positioned themselves, preparing for their final strike, the Catalyst grew stronger, pulsing with energy. It was no longer just a dark rift, it was alive, consuming everything in its path. The ships were nearing its heart, but the energy field surrounding it was unpredictable. It pulled at the ships like a force of nature, warping reality around them. Gravity distorted, time bent, and space itself seemed to crack under the strain of the Catalyst's power. "On my mark," Callan's voice crackled through the comms, his resolve unwavering. "We attack together now." The Deathworlder fleet and human ships surged forward, their weapons primed. As they approached the Catalyst's core, the ships fired in unison, releasing everything they had into the heart of the dark energy. But the Catalyst was not so easily destroyed. It absorbed their attacks, growing more powerful with every strike. "It's not enough," Arya shouted. "We need to focus everything on the center." Callan's mind raced as the moment for victory or defeat drew closer. They couldn't afford to fail now. One more push, He barked. With the combined forces of the Deathworlders and humanity, they fired their final shot. Channeling everything into the heart of the catalyst, the energy field began to crack. The ships shook violently as the energy exploded outward. For a moment, it felt like everything would be consumed, but then, slowly, the darkness began to recede. The catalyst's power waned, its grip on the galaxy loosening. The galaxy had a chance to survive, but at what cost in the end? Humanity and the Deathworlders stood victorious, but not without scars. The catalyst had been destroyed, but the damage to the fabric of the galaxy was far-reaching. Earth had played its part, but the future was uncertain. The aftermath of destruction silence that followed the explosion was deafening. For a long moment, nothing seemed to exist except for the broken remnants of the ships and the fading echo of energy, dispersing into the vastness of space. The catalyst's energy had been broken, but the universe had paid a steep price for it. Time itself had bent under the immense pressure, and as the rift collapsed, the star systems closest to it were left in a state of chaos. The fabric of reality was torn in places, and many of the ships in the combined fleet had sustained irreparable damage. Humanity's Deathworlder allies stood motionless at their command stations, their typically unyielding faces now marked with the toll of the fight. The final blow to the catalyst had come at a great cost, and the aliens had been part of that sacrifice, just as much as humanity. Commander Callan stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring out at the wreckage. His hands were shaking, but he held them tight. He knew the galaxy had narrowly avoided total destruction, but now they faced an entirely different reality. What they had done was irreversible. The catalyst was gone, but its effects would leave lasting scars. Arya joined him, looking out at the same wreckage. Her voice was low. "We stopped it, Commander, but at what cost? The energy we unleashed will change the galaxy forever." Callan nodded, his gaze fixed on the stars. "We can't undo what we've done, but we've bought time, Arya. We've bought the galaxy a chance to heal, and that's more than I thought we'd get." As the ships regrouped, the Deathworlders were the first to speak. Their leader, Tariq, addressing the humans, his piercing gaze locked onto Callan, his tone softer than it had been before. "We're alive because of you. Your people showed strength, courage, and resolve. You fought as though the galaxy depended on it, because, in the end, it did." Callan met his gaze, but he saw something different in the Deathworlders' eyes now. "Respect. You fought alongside us, Tariq. This victory is as much yours as it is ours." Tariq nodded once, his face hardening again. "You humanity, you will never be the same. This battle, this war has changed you, and now you are part of something larger. The universe will look at Earth differently from now on." The Deathworlders had long been considered a force of nature, a species feared across galaxies for their strength and uncompromising nature. But even they had never faced anything like the catalyst. Humanity, on the other hand, had always been underestimated by the rest of the galaxy, reckless, unpredictable, but relentless. Yet, in the face of overwhelming odds, it was that very quality that had given them the edge. Humanity had taught the Deathworlders something: when everything is on the line, you can't give up. Arya's words lingered in Callan's mind as he made his way to the command deck of the human flagship. "We've just made a name for Earth in the galaxy," she had said. But that name came with a heavy burden. The price of their victory was high, and the galaxy was not about to forget the cost. As the fleet began its journey back, the aftershocks of their actions were evident. Earth's future had been secured, but for how long? The Deathworlders had fought alongside humanity, but their alliance was fragile. With the catalyst neutralized, what was left? Peace or the endless conflict that defined the galaxy? "We've changed things today," Callan said quietly to himself. "But the real test is what comes next." Back on Earth, a new chapter was beginning. The message had been clear. Humanity had stood its ground and answered a galactic SOS not out of fear, but out of sheer will to survive. The Deathworlders had helped them, but they had also shown the cost of survival in a universe filled with endless threats. The universe now looked at Earth with new eyes. No longer would humans be seen as weak or insignificant. They had proven themselves, but at a price that would leave them forever changed. Inside the command room of the human flagship, Commander Callan turned to Arya once again. "Do you think we're ready for what comes next?" Arya paused, her eyes fixed on the data scrolling across the screens. "We may never be truly ready, Commander, but we're alive, and that counts for something." Callan nodded, his expression hardening with resolve. "We'll face whatever comes, but this time, we know we can fight back." The galaxy had changed, and with it, humanity's place within it. The Deathworlder fleet had returned to its own space, leaving behind a message of respect. They had fought side by side with humans, and in that, there was a new understanding between the species. The catalyst was gone, but the future of the galaxy remained uncertain. Earth's Deathworlder fleet had responded to the call, But what other dangers lay in the depths of space? What other forces were watching from the shadows, waiting for their moment to strike? The fight for the galaxy's future had just begun, and humanity would no longer be a spectator. They had answered the call, and they would face whatever the universe threw at them together. Asterisk, the unseen enemy as Earth's fleet drifted farther from the collapsing rift. Commander Callan could feel the weight of what had just transpired. The galactic battle was over, but something about the aftermath felt strange, unfinished. Humanity had won, but the universe, he knew, was a vast and complex place, and Earth had just become a target. The Deathworlders had returned to their ships, their silent warriors retreating to the safety of their own territories. But the respect they had shown humanity was clear, and Callan knew this victory had forged a bond. Yet, even with this alliance, the future felt uncertain. The fight against the Catalyst had been the easy part. At least in comparison to what was coming next, the Galactic SOS had been a cry for help. But as Earth's fleet continued its journey home, the questions lingered. What other dangers were lurking in the depths of space? Were there other catalysts waiting to be awakened? And if the galaxy had already been tested, what would happen if new enemies even more dangerous than the Catalyst arrived on their doorstep? Back on Earth, the celebration of their victory had been brief. The people rejoiced, but the leaders knew that a galaxy-wide peace wasn't as simple as just defeating one powerful enemy. The battle for survival had only just begun. The alliances forged between humans and Deathworlders would need to be tested. But the future was unpredictable. And even with newfound respect between Earth and the Deathworlders, there were forces at play that none of them could have anticipated. Humanity had faced the worst and survived, but the price of survival had been heavy. The catalyst's energy wasn't just neutralized, it had scattered across the galaxy, and its residual influence was felt in strange ways. Commander Callan sat at the central table in the war room, his mind consumed by the unknowns. The data stream showed anomalies in the energy patterns. Something had shifted, something far more insidious than the catalyst. He'd felt it when they fired the final disruptor charges into the core. A ripple, a whisper of unseen power had spread out across the stars, as though the galaxy itself had felt the catalyst's death and now reacted. Commander, you need to see this. Arya's voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned sharply, his eyes narrowing. What is it? Arya's face was tense, her fingers moving rapidly over the holographic display in front of her. I've been tracking the residual energy from the catalyst. Something's not right. The patterns don't match any recorded data from previous galactic phenomena. It's almost as if the catalyst was a trigger. Now we're seeing signs of something else. On the screen, the galaxy map shifted, showing new anomalies. Bright flashes of energy and unnatural disturbances in distant regions of space. They were unlike anything Earth had ever encountered. What are we looking at? Callan asked. Leaning forward, Arya's voice was calm but tinged with worry. The energy from the catalyst's core didn't just disappear, it seems to be awakening. Something else, something ancient and dangerous. And we're seeing it spread across multiple systems. This isn't just about fighting enemies anymore. We've disturbed something we don't understand. Callan felt a chill run down his spine. So the catalyst was just the beginning, Arya nodded. The catalyst was a symptom, not the cause. There's a much deeper issue at play. I think we've triggered something that's been sleeping for millennia. Something that might have once been a force of nature. Meanwhile, aboard the Deathworlder flagship, Tariq had been receiving similar reports. The energy patterns from the catalyst were spreading, and the Deathworlders had begun their own investigations into the disturbances. They had made their first contact with humanity, but the war was not yet over. There's something we're not seeing, Tariq murmured, as he stood at the bridge, his voice grave. The catalyst was only one aspect of the problem. We were so focused on it. But the true enemy is still out there. We awakened it, and now the galaxy is shifting. Jara, his second-in-command, stood beside him. What do you think this means? For us, Tariq's gaze hardened. It means we're facing a force that we don't understand. We thought the catalyst was the final trial, but it's just a warning. The universe is filled with powers we've never fully grasped. Back on Earth, Commander Callan realized that the threat they had just faced might be small in comparison to what was coming. The catalyst's death had caused ripples in the very fabric of space, and it was clear the universe was now responding to humanity's actions. But what was it responding to? What do we do next? Arya asked, her voice low with uncertainty. Callan stood up and faced the galaxy map, the weight of his decision clear. We prepare. We don't know what's coming, but we can't wait for it to find us. We've already disturbed something much bigger than ourselves. Now we fight not just for survival but for the future. The call to action was clear. Humanity, the Deathworlders, and the rest of the galaxy had barely survived their first battle. The catalyst was gone, But the true enemy, the force that had been lying dormant for millennia, was now awake, pulsing. And it was drawing near. Callan's hands tightened into fists. This was not just a fight for Earth's future, it was a fight for the entire galaxy, and humanity's greatest challenge was yet to come. Shadows of the forgotten universe had fallen silent. The energy from the catalyst's death lingered like a faint pulse across space. But it was the stillness that was most unsettling. The galaxy, once vibrant with life and movement, now seemed paused, as though it were holding its breath. Every flicker of light from the distant stars seemed to carry with it a warning, a whisper that something was watching. Commander Callan stood on the bridge of the flagship, staring at the galactic map once more. The anomalies continued to spread. Energetic rifts had appeared in remote corners of space, areas where no human or alien had ever ventured. The catalyst had been defeated. But what remained was something far older, something that had been awakened by their actions. The Deathworlder fleet, still battered from their battle with the catalyst, moved silently alongside Earth's forces. Tariq had sent word that the Deathworlders were preparing for what was to come. But Callan knew that the unease was mutual. Their enemy was not just an alien race or a dark force, it was something that had been sleeping for eons, and now it was stirring, hunting, and it was heading straight for them. Arya, any progress on the anomalies? Callan asked, his voice steady but carrying an edge of concern. Arya's hands flew over the controls. She had been working tirelessly, trying to analyze the strange fluctuations in energy across the galaxy. It's like something is following us, Commander. Every time we make a move, these rifts get closer. It's as if we're being tracked by something older than the catalyst. Callan's mind raced. Tracking, that meant intelligence. If something was following them, then they weren't just dealing with an environmental hazard. They were facing a purposeful force, one that had been awake long enough to track their movements. Can you determine its origin? Callan asked. His jaw tightening. Arya shook her head, frustration clear on her face. Not yet. The energy signatures don't match anything we've ever encountered. It's as if the very fabric of space is being manipulated. We might be looking at a force that has the power to alter reality itself. Meanwhile, on the Deathworlder flagship, Tariq and his council were preparing for the worst. The Deathworlders had always been the survivors. Their entire culture was built on overcoming insurmountable odds. But even they could feel the weight of this new threat. The catalyst had been the trigger, but something darker had followed in its wake. We've never faced an enemy like this, Tariq said to Jara, his voice low and heavy with realization. The catalyst was a weapon, something we could fight. This is something else. Something far beyond our comprehension. Jara nodded, her eyes scanning the alien star charts on the table in front of them. We've fought wars against countless enemies, conquered worlds, but this is not just an invasion. It's as if the fabric of the universe is shifting. What happens if this entity is not a being at all, but something beyond comprehension? Tariq clenched his fists. We don't have answers, but we can't afford to wait and learn. We'll face it, no matter what it is. The human fleet had been instructed to move cautiously through the rifts, but the path ahead was fraught with unknown dangers. As Callan observed the ships moving through the energy field, the stars flickered ominously. They weren't just passing through a dangerous area, they were now within something far more complex. The rift that had once been a faint signal was now a growing storm of dark energy, threatening to swallow them whole. We're getting too close, Arya muttered, her eyes fixed on the readings flashing across the screens. There's no way to predict what will happen next. These anomalies aren't just static, they're shifting, expanding. Callan's voice was grim. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We can't afford to stay on this course any longer. Whatever is out there, we don't know what we're facing, but we know it's not just an enemy fleet. We need to stay ahead of whatever's following us. A new signal came through, and this time, it wasn't a warning or a transmission, it was a command. A voice, cold and ancient, reverberated through the human fleet's communication systems. Its tone chillingly familiar. Stop running, you cannot escape what has been awakened. The words echoed through every ship, and in that moment, Callan felt a rush of cold air. This was no longer just about fighting enemies, it was about confronting an unimaginable force. The voice wasn't just an alien species, it was something old. Something that had been part of the galaxy long before humanity or the Deathworlders ever existed. It's here, Arya whispered, almost too afraid to speak. That voice, it's alive. And it's reaching into every corner of space. We woke it. As the rifts around them continued to pulse, the alien force began to show itself. Dark tendrils of energy swept through space, and massive ships larger than anything the Deathworlders had ever seen emerged from the shadows. These beings, ancient and unknowable, were shrouded in darkness, their forms flickering and shifting like shadows in the light. They didn't speak, but their presence was undeniable. The galaxy's most ancient enemy had awoken. The time for escape is over. Callan said, standing tall on the bridge. We've been running from this force long enough. It's time to stand and fight.